These people told me and ripped me out of my bed at like 3 in the morning because my drug test came back positive for PCP. But
Hi guys, welcome back to AdoptedGals podcast. As you can see, we have another guest today. So it's another interview that we're gonna do. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be interacting with each other. And I'm gonna give to Hawa to go ahead and introduce Maria.
Yes. So I am so happy that we have Maria, who actually is a close friend of mine. I have known her since we were in high school. We actually went to the same boarding school together. And she has been thoughtful and kind enough to, be a host or a guest on this podcast today. She's also adopted. She's also transracially adopted. And so I know that we've kind of shared our stories of what it's like being adopted, our challenges we've gone through, some of the good parts of being adopted. And so I just thought she would be a phenomenal person to like just hear what her experience has been like. She's gone through a lot, she's learned a lot, and she's persevered through a lot of different challenges. And so I just thought this would be a really amazing gift for you guys as listeners. So welcome, Maria.
thank you, Hala.
So happy to have you here.
Thank
Um,
you.
yes, of course. So maybe we can start off the conversation if you want to maybe share a bit about your background.
Yeah,
Yeah, a little bit about your background.
of course.
Mhm.
So I am Hispanic and Puerto Rican. So Mexican and Puerto Rican. Aztec is the main background why I look a lot Indian, not Mexican. But yeah, so that's my background, and my birth family is from California also,
Mhm.
and they live like a few cities away from me, so I've been able to know them. But I've been raised by white people per se. Is that what you guys say? White people?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what we say,
Okay.
white people.
We get a lot of heat for it, but
Yeah,
yes.
We do.
Caucasian, I don't know the route. But yeah, but that's my background is Hispanic.
Okay, awesome. And what about in regards to your adoption? Like, how did your adoption come about? Like, were you with your birth parents? Did you know your birth parents? Were you with them for a period of time before you got adopted? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so my birth mom actually had 16 children. I am
Wow.
her 12th child, and I'm the first child out of all of her children to be put up for adoption. My
Mhm.
mom struggled with prostitution and drug abuse,
Mhm.
and she still had a wonderful heart, still was there for her kids.
Mhm.
But that just triggered her to go through a downward spiral. She had her first
Mhm.
child at 12.
Wow.
So and she died when she was 42 from ovarian
Oh,
cancer. So in
whew.
that span, she had a lot of children.
Wow.
And I mean, my adopted mom actually knows my birth mom, and they had an open adoption. So I was blessed to know the family,
Mhm.
but my mom would never show up for the visits because she never wanted to see me, or she never wanted me to see her on drugs.
Mm.
Um, so she was
Yeah.
kind
Wow.
of going in and out of like sobriety and going back on drugs and ooh,
Exactly, and she would have periods of time where, I mean, we would disconnect because their
Mhm.
numbers would, back in the day, numbers, if you didn't have someone's cell phone number or phone number, you lost it and you would have to find the person in person. So I
Mhm.
found my birth family years later again when I was about 8, and I started talking to them more. I was more close to my grandma, so my mom's mom,
Mhm.
and she raised a few of my siblings. So we
Mhm.
were really close. And I have one birth brother that has the same mom and same dad. So a
Okay.
lot of the siblings will have like different dads. And then there's a group of them that have like 8 children that all have the same mom and same dad. But my
Okay.
dad lives in Mexico and he was deported when I was a baby.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you ever spoken to your birth dad? Do you guys have a
Yeah.
relationship? Okay.
So I got to meet him the first time when I was 24, and I'm 27 now. So it was a few years ago. I got
Mhm.
to FaceTime him, and it was just like a full circle moment. It was like I finally got to like feel
Yeah.
complete in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, I get
He
it.
only
Yeah.
speaks Spanish, but his kids were able to communicate with me. I figured out I was his youngest child. There's none after me, but he has 18 children.
Wow.
And that's other than my mother's 16 children. So it's a lot of us. And I'm finding out more and more I have siblings everywhere. So
wow, what an interesting story. Wow.
Very,
you have a very interesting background.
I didn't know you had that many like siblings.
Yeah,
a lot of them.
Did you get
what is that like? Do you have a relationship with them, or is it just some that you have?
I do. It's iffy. So some years it was harder than others, and I think I had to learn as I grew up. A lot of it was jealousy, but not in a mean jealous way. It was more like, I'm mad that you live such a wonderful life and you have all these things, because I was blessed with parents that had money and had a wonderful home and were able to send me to private school, but they weren't. They were living and they were struggling and they were in like the ghetto, and it was not fun for them. So when I would come, hey, I'm here to see my mom, I'm here to see my grandma, and I look wonderful, and then they're like, they envy it, you know. So it was always oh, am I supposed to be nice, or like I want to be nice and I want to see them, but they're just envious of me, and that is a hard thing when you're adopted to like balance. Is what's stepping my toe, like what is too much, you know. So
I completely get that part with the envy from your siblings, because when I went back to Sierra Leone and I visited my family, there was some jealousy from my siblings, and I understand, you know, I guess you probably get it too, because they see us having a good life, and they don't necessarily think about all the other stuff that comes with being adopted, and, you know, transracial adoption. It's like they see, well, you're having a good life and I don't have that, and it's like, I wish I could like save you from that too. And you also, like, I don't know about you, I feel a little guilty as well too, like that's the survivor's remorse that comes with it.
And I never understood that, like, why do I feel so bad? And I am such a person that I give a lot. And that was a hard thing growing up, is I would buy my friends. Since I had money, I'd buy them. Like, I want you to be my friend, so I will take you shopping, or I want this. But at a young age, you don't understand that. And I remember watching one of your podcasts and how it brought up, like, it's kind of like I needed that love from someone else. And for me, that was friends. And that's why in the end I don't have many. Like, I don't have many now, and that's probably a piece of advice I'd give myself would be, hey, you know, don't do that. But how do you tell an adopted child that craves attention from someone and craves that, but you can't say that, and you can't, there's not really a platform until now where you're able to explain that to people. So
you know, it's funny because we always, like, on our podcast, we actually have done a few videos where we talked about like jealousy, but it was always focused on the perspective of jealousy with our siblings that are biological to the adopted parents. So that jealousy is always there, but like, I never really thought about, because now that you guys are talking about it, I'm like, actually, I remember when I went to Africa and like my siblings, they were like adopted siblings on that side in my African family, right? But they're in Africa, living in poverty. And like, I remember she was a sweet girl, but she would always give me like these side eyes, like kind of like, you know, and I could tell like, it was like, oh, you think you're better than us, or because you're in America, you left, and, you know, you're just not one of us. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's kind of like, I'm like an outsider, always that reminder that you're an outsider. And that's so true, like having that jealousy situation. And I will say, like, Maria, just because I know you personally, we went to boarding school, I can definitely say, like, I do see what you were saying when you're like, you know, Maria, one thing you guys have to know about Maria, she goes out for people that she loves. Like, she will show up, she will show out, like, she will, if you need her to be somewhere, she'll be there. You know what I mean? Like, she's a ride or die type of chick for people that she loves. And I think, you know, in high school, like, I could definitely read that on you. And I think a lot of people could read that on you. That's where, you know, there's probably a lot of positions you're putting yourself where it's like you could get taken advantage of by people who didn't value, you know, that didn't understand that, like, that's actually a trait that should be cherished. You know what I mean? Because again, being adopted, we're so focused on like getting that validation, getting that love from people. And we're not even able to see that some of those people don't even deserve, you know, that type of love that we want to give you.
Right. So Maria, let me ask you, because How and I, we talk about where that comes from is from being given up. Do you think, is that the same thing that you're feeling from giving up, where you felt like you were not enough? So growing up and you try to like accumulate love from people in that way, and it's stemming from you being given up. Is that the
I
same thing
think
for
it
you?
was a little bit different. It was
Okay.
that half of it was that, but the other half was my parents, I was their first like foster child. They were not looking to adopt whatsoever. They were looking to be emergency placements for disabled children or children that came out of drug addiction situations that were going to go with like withdrawal and stuff. So I was their first emergency placement, and after 5 months my mom and dad were like, oh no, we're like falling in love with this little girl. So my mom prayed one day and said, hey God, like I don't know what to do. Can you please tell me, like, we are Maria's forever home? And my mom said God spoke to her and was like, yes, you are Maria's forever home. And my mom was like,
Oh, that's
God,
so
did you
sweet.
just really talk to me? Like, did you just really say that? No, if you just really said that, my birthday is on January 8th. If the social worker calls and says, we have no placement for Maria, we will take her. And on my mom's birthday, she got a call and it said, hey, we don't have a home for Maria, so you're stuck.
That is so sweet.
That is beautiful.
Sweet.
But after that, they had 22 other kids come in, all different types, until I was about 14 or 15. And all of them had disabilities. So for me, it was, hey, I'm over here. Hey, but there's way more other children that actually need medical attention, that need way more help than me. And now I see that as a mom now, especially. But as a young child, you're like, what about me? You know?
Right.
So
Right.
I think that was more of where it stemmed from.
Okay, that makes sense. So now, how old were you when you adopted?
So I was 2 when I was adopted, but I was officially like my mom and dad were going through the process of adoption when I was about 6 months old.
Okay.
And I came to them when I was 7 days old.
Wow.
So they're all I know. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
You guys started from scratch, you know, like
oh yeah, scratch.
we got adopted when we were 8, so we already had built an identity, you know, we already were living with our biological family, we had that connection, and then you didn't have anything, so you were living from scratch. So do you think from your perspective that made it maybe potentially easier for you to
way
like
easier
build that
because that's all I've
connection with your
known.
family?
I think if it was the other way around and I was taken away, especially since you bring up the age 8, I have a story of when I was 8 that we'll talk about in a little bit, but that is a strong age where it's like you'll remember everything, and to be taken away from the only people you know, even if it was a struggle, I would rather stay in the struggle with my family. But now as we're adults, we see why, you know, they sacrificed, you know, for us to get a better life. So it's way easier, when you've only seen one, and it is, because I couldn't imagine going through the other way.
Right. And so did you end up growing up in a white community, like everywhere you look, everybody was white, or was it more like diverse? And if so, like, how was that for you?
Yeah, so the blessing of being in the Bay Area is you see a whole different bunch of, we're a melting pot over here. So we see a whole bunch of different races. Now, Pinole is where I was raised, and it is more white, but it's also Filipino and Mexicans and a whole bunch of the other stuff. But it's rare to see Black people. I mean, there was only one Ethiopian child in my school I went to my whole life until high school. And then I branched out and saw way more races. But it was like, I mean, we had African American babies at our house all the time. We had disabled 8-year-olds that were African American. So I've seen every race, and all my sisters have married African Americans. So it's like I see it everywhere, thankfully. But I mean, my dad's from South Dakota, my adopted dad, and there are no Black people, no Mexicans, none. So when I'm over there, it's like I am adopted by white people. I have to remind myself I can't just say certain things or do certain things because it's different out there. But I've experienced it all.
Yeah.
Do you think you've kind of speaking on what you know, the difference between you being of Hispanic culture and then your parents being white. Do you think the experience of being transracially adopted has influenced your sense of like identity and belonging at all whatsoever?
Yeah, that was a huge thing with my birth family is I wanted to be more like them. I wanted
Mhm.
to experience like quinceañeras. I wanted to experience Hispanic
Mhm.
parties. I wanted to experience that whole vibe and not
Mhm.
what my parents had.
Mhm.
Now my parents did try their best to have a quinceañera for me and, you know, get me a dress and take me on it. Like they took me to
Mhm.
Hawaii, which is some white people. What you would think a white person would do for a quinceañera is get their kid a dress and take them to Hawaii. So that's what they did.
Yeah.
But but yeah, so I mean, but it's nice. I mean, I see it everywhere and it's not like not hard for me to see. Like I don't see white when I look at myself. I see a
Okay.
Hispanic woman when I look at myself. And my parents have
Mhm.
done a good job instilling that into me.
That's
That's
good. That's
good.
beautiful.
So in what ways, because for us, like a lot of times when it's like white and black adoption, sometimes
Mhm.
the parents just don't even know what to do. Like how, you know, and maybe the knowledge is not there, or they're just like so comfortable within their bubble that they're just like,
Oh,
well, they're in a safe house, they have love, they don't need to go into the black culture, whatever. What ways did your parents like make sure to incorporate your culture into your life to a point, you know, the quinceanera, that's actually very nice. What are some
Yeah.
other ways that they were able to incorporate like your culture or show you who you are, where you come from, so you don't forget that?
Mhm.
yeah. So my parents actually kind of went not too extreme, but they got me an Aztec calendar. They wanted me to, you know, like they wanted to take me to Mexico at one point, but
Mhm.
it was during the time where you shouldn't go to Mexico. So they
Okay.
withdrew that. But they were very, you know, involved with, hey, like this is where your
Mhm.
dad's from. Like this is the Aztec culture, you know, like I still have the framed image they got for me in Mexico. Like and
Mhm.
they would like I mean, I have white people taste buds. That's the
Yeah.
only thing that they didn't help me with is they could have,
Yeah.
you know, pushed a little bit more
I
seasoning
totally
on
get
things.
it. I totally get
I'm
it.
like, I'm lost. I'm now I this past month I've like experienced El Pastor and I'm like, excuse me, where has this been all my life? Like, mom, like but they did a good job with like teaching me how to do my hair correctly because my hair is curly. They
Mhm.
weren't like straightening it or doing anything crazy. Now my mom would brush it out and then chop it and then it would shrink. But other than that, like they
Yeah.
did a really good job at reminding me like, hey, you're not going to get away with white privilege. My mom kind of gave
Mhm.
me what my husband's mom gave him is the
Mhm.
talk like, hey, if you get arrested or you know, if what
Yeah.
you're doing right now, because I used to steal money from my parents
Mhm.
growing up, that was a thing for me.
Mhm.
And they're like, hey, if you know, if we ever decided to be like, hey, we're going to tell on you, you
Mhm.
could get into really big trouble. And
Mhm.
if you didn't have us as parents, you would not be able to get out, you know? So
Mhm.
that was a blessing that they gave me that talk and they made
Yeah.
me, you know, and when I started acting bad, I mean, I'm
Mhm.
not telling anybody to send your kid to boarding school. That's not what you're supposed to do. But I know I needed that at the time.
Yeah.
And if I didn't have some type of wake up call, then I
Mhm.
would have not been the person I am today. So
Absolutely.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, our parents, I would say our parents were kind of the same way too, where they did not allow us to like forget about our cultures. Like for me, my mother and my father made sure, hey, this is where you are from, and
that's
racism
great.
exists, and
Yeah.
you have to be aware of certain things, and being different and looking different. So to hear that was the same experience for you too is beautiful, because at the end of the day, when it comes to transracial adoption, parents who adopt children, you have to be well versed in on who you're adopting and learn about their culture and their history, and bringing that into your home, one, not only to make them feel more comfortable, but just to let them know, I'm raising this kid. I need to let them know. I need to let them know you can't do certain things. You can't. You know what I mean? Like the whole race thing.
Exactly.
That's beautiful.
Exactly.
So beautiful. It
Yeah.
warms my heart to hear that your parents were very involved with you in that area.
Yeah, I'm very blessed.
When did they tell you that you were adopted? Like, did you always know? Like,
I
how
always knew.
you
Yeah,
always
I
because of
always, well,
different
beyond my
looks,
skin, I'm
right?
like, ah.
Yeah, the looks and stuff
My
like
mom
that.
would always throw it out. My adopted mom would always throw it out there, like, hey, we have the same nose. Like, me and her have the same birthmark on the same spot of our body. It's like creepy. Like, it looks
Wow.
funny too. She's like, it's meant to
That
be.
wait,
Like,
with your adoptive mom?
yeah, with my
Yeah.
adopted mom. Same
That is
birthmark on the
meant
same
to be.
spot.
Like, they were meant
Right?
to be your parents for sure. That
Exactly.
is
That's what I
For
crazy.
mean.
real.
Very true. But it's like those type of things. It's like
Yeah.
I just, I knew they
Yeah.
were
Right.
supposed to be there. Yeah.
Well, that's good. And the fact that they had an open adoption to give you that
Yeah.
like chance to like, you know, have that relationship with your family, like your birth family. Like, you mentioned that like your birth mom wasn't really too much in your life after you got adopted. Were there times when you did like visit her, or like you guys
Yeah.
did, like what was the dynamic like? Did you feel like you were missing out on something? Like how did that feel for you? I'm
Yeah.
really curious to know.
So I have a few pictures with my birth mom, like one when I turned one, and then another one, well, one when I'm like brand new, right out the womb, and then another one when I was like 4 or 5. But as I said, when I would go to these visits, it would mainly be go to my grandma's house, and then it'd be the little girl waiting to see her mom, like waiting, just waiting with flowers, like mom, 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 like. But until like I think when I was 22, my sister finally was like, "Hey, like she was at those visits, she was there, but she was in the parking lot, and she would just
Oh
look
my
at you through
God.
her car," and that gave me closure also because I never knew that. But she was like, "No, you wore this one specific dress this one time, and you had flowers in your hand." And
Oh my
she
gosh.
just felt horrible that she couldn't go out there, but she was strung out on heroin, and she didn't want,
Yeah.
she wanted to see you, but she didn't want you to see her because
Right.
she knew she was not doing what she was supposed to do. She wanted to be off drugs, but she was
Yeah.
she was so hurt at a young age that
Yeah.
all that trauma and all that stuff changed
Yeah.
her, and no one could have changed her, I don't think. I think she wanted to try, but her last, I think when she was like 41, she was sent to jail. And then in jail, she was treated horribly, and she
Wow.
had like stomach stuff going on, and it turned out to be cancer, then ovarian cancer, and then all that other stuff until it was too late. But the jail gave her a compassionate release to die in my older sister's home. So I was given a call by my grandma, and that was the last time I got to see my mom. So I've seen my mom in total, I think, like 4 times.
Okay.
But the last one was on her deathbed. My real name is Esmeralda. So to
Beautiful.
her, that's all she knows. So when I got in there, it was very like traumatizing to see someone dying of cancer in that way because they look like a
Yeah.
skeleton and then they're bloated, and you're just like, this isn't the pictures that I see. But all
Yeah.
my sisters are older, so when I walked in the door, I'm like, Mom, why are you up and about? You're supposed to be dying on your
Yeah.
deathbed. And she's like, no, I'm your sister, Laverne.
Oh, they
Like,
look
your
like
mom,
her.
Yeah. They
Laverne,
look alike.
is in the
Yeah.
other room. They are identical
Wow.
twins. Identical.
Oh,
So, and her name's
Wow.
Laverne, like my mom's name. So it's trippy. And I'm like, wait, this is confusing. But it was a wonderful talk that I got with my mom. She like cried to my mom, was like thankful, like she took me. And I mean, it was a eye-opening
Mm.
experience because
Oh,
I was 9 or 10 years old when it happened. So I'm like,
Mm.
"Ooh, what do you say to somebody that you've always wanted to tell everything to?" And I
Yeah.
couldn't get it out. So I just
yeah.
went to the other room. And as an adult, I'm like, why didn't I say the things I wanted to say? But
Yeah.
as a 10-year-old, you can't, you just don't. You're scared. You're just like, darn it, I missed out on stuff, but you don't know how to express that as
Yeah.
a
Like
10-year-old.
a
So
stranger too.
yeah,
Like,
and
It
she's a
is
stranger.
yeah.
Yeah,
li-
exactly.
like one of my biggest fears is like, because I don't know about you, like when she passed away, was there times where like felt like you missed out on so much with her? Like for
Oh
me,
yeah.
I'm scared of losing my mom because I don't really know know her like that anymore. I knew her when I was like 8, but I don't really know her. And it's like, I don't know how I'm going to feel, like what's going to come out. You know what I mean? Like, how was that for you in terms of finding closure for yourself? Because you didn't really get to be with your mom, even though you wanted that. You would have loved to have a beautiful relationship or something like that
Yes.
with
So I
her.
got my closure with my sisters. And I'm very thankful to be friends with
Oh,
all of
that's
my
beautiful.
sisters. At least the ones that I know. I don't know any of the
Mhm,
kids after me. But all of the
mhm,
older ones have always welcomed me with open arms. We've all had our times, but but I mean,
mhm,
now that we're a lot older, I think we all just know we all have our mother's heart, and our mother's heart
mhm,
was so big.
mhm,
And I think sometimes they all hold like we all care too much, a little bit. But
mhm.
they've been able to give me the closure. I see myself in them. I think the weirdest thing is when you finally visit your birth family and you're just like, wait, people look like me? Like I look
Yeah.
identical to my nieces, and my sisters are a lot older. So my nieces
Mhm,
are like my age. And I'm like,
mhm.
and they're like, "You're hot." And I'm like, "You're hot." I'm like, "This is not right." I was like, "You guys look like me." Like, "You're not my sisters?" Like, I'm like so confused all the time. I go to all these parties now with my birth family. I'm like, whoa. So
Yeah.
it's pretty cool to finally have that.
Yeah.
But they've given me so much closure on my mom. Like,
Mhm,
I feel like I know my mom now because they speak so highly of her when they got to hang out with her because they got
mhm,
to see clean Laverne at times. So
mhm.
that must have been fun.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I know that in the beginning, you mentioned going to boarding school. Me and you actually, we ended up going to the same boarding school. Diamond Ranch Academy officially closed down. I'm just joking, but what I was gonna say is I want to know because for the most part, it seems like your relationship with your mom, both your parents, your adopted parents, has been like very loving, very respectful. They understood how to support you both emotionally, financially, and also culturally in a way, as much as they could, anyways, right? Without being Hispanic themselves. So so I'm curious to know, leading to the boarding school, like what are some of the challenges that you were going through that maybe led you to going to the boarding school where your mom or your dad was like, okay, we've had it, this is enough, like you're going to the boarding school. And also feel free to share as much as you want or as little
Yeah.
as you want, but just to give us an idea.
Yeah. So I think it all started when I was around 6. I was starting to like not be able to sit still, the
Mhm,
ADD. They're like, like I think something's different about her than a lot of the other kids that we have. And
mhm,
not just their own, they have 4 biological children themselves. So,
mhm,
and my parents are like 75, 80 now. So
mhm,
I was dealing with 50-year-olds when I was a baby. So my
mhm,
parents are really, really old. And so their kids are like 40s, 50s now.
mhm,
And so they were like, "Yeah, she's not right. Something's wrong." And I would have these manic episodes and screaming episodes sometimes growing up. But at age 8, I was sadly molested by my sister's boyfriend at the time. And this was one of
mhm.
their biological daughter's boyfriends.
Mm,
And he was in a wheelchair. So, in some people's mind, how could somebody in a wheelchair touch a kid? Wouldn't they just run away? Well,
Yeah.
I was raised in a Catholic school where if someone touches any of your private parts, you go immediately to an adult. Immediately.
Yeah.
So after it happened, it was like I still remember the day like it happened yesterday. Like I cannot like even drive by where it happened anymore without like flipping it off. Like so it's like that's like how like deep it goes. But
Mhm,
I immediately after it happened went and told my mom. My mom was a nurse at the time, also a
mhm.
mandated reporter, being a foster parent. And she called CPS immediately. CPS came, did an interview. They said they couldn't find anything. So my after that, I was kind of believed to be a liar, not by anybody, but in my
Mhm.
mind, I was a liar to CPS because they couldn't find anything. My
Yeah.
mom believed me. My dad
you were
believed me.
self-doubting, yeah.
Everybody believed me, but the people that were supposed to believe me.
Right.
So
Yeah.
as that happened, my sister was also going through her own mental issues at the time. She had her own story. And this was kind of what sadly happens, as they say, sadly happens, is like it happened to your mom, so it happened to your daughter, so it'll happen to you. It's like, but no, it's not going to happen to my kid. It stops now. But my sister needed help, and she stayed with the man. And so I was 8 when it happened, and until I was 18, I had to see that man every day. My parents bought them. My parents bought them a house in Pinole, which is a very expensive house to buy out there. Bought them a wheelchair accessible home for them. My sister and I were so close. I'm talking 9 years apart, but this is their last child. So I'm like, I wanted to be around her so bad, but she wouldn't come to my birthdays. Yeah. She would cancel to hang out with him. But remember, as an 8-year-old, you're like, that man touched me. Yeah. You're choosing him over me. That's what I see. But in her mind, it was not that way. She was going through her own mental game. But when I was 16, I think my parents were tired of it. I would lash out by stealing money from them. So I'd lash out, steal money, lash out, go hang out with the wrong crowd. But I never did drugs. I smoked weed maybe 4 times in high school. And that was like what? Sophomore year, I think, not even freshman year, it was sophomore year. I was not doing anything that in my mind I could have gotten killed. But in my parents' mind, what I was doing, the lying, the smoking weed a few times, the hanging out with the wrong crowd was going to get me killed in their mind. And so they decided to start looking at schools because my dad's cousins or my dad's family wouldn't take me in South Dakota. Makes sense. I mean, the people over here wouldn't take me that my mom knew. And the day before I went to boarding school, I hung out with my birth family and they wanted me. They wanted me back. My grandma said she can live with us. I assumed that I was going to be going and moving in with my grandma. This was when I was about to be in junior year of high school. And so I had that wonderful sleepover. My grandma taught me how to make tortillas. It was like the perfect day. Kind of like the perfect day before someone dies, but it's like the perfect day that happened. Like I lived what I wanted to live. I spent the first full night at my grandma's house. I felt normal. I felt Hispanic. I felt seen. I was like, I don't need these people that raised me, but I love this. And then the next day, my mom and dad are like, hey, want to go to Vegas? like we're
how
going to
they
go
get
look
you.
at school. We're going to go look
That's
at
how they
stuff.
get you. Yeah.
So we went. What 16-year-old doesn't want to go to Vegas on a Monday? Like, come on. Like, should have seen it coming that I was going to look. I knew I was going to be looking at schools, but it didn't cross my mind I was going to be looking at schools over there. So, yeah, and they also threw me an ice cream party. I don't even like ice cream. They threw me an ice cream party a day before with my whole family there. I was like, something seems I know I'm going to look at schools, but like, this doesn't seem right. And then I finally pull up to Diamond Ranch Academy, and that was the worst day of my life.
They just dropped you off.
Yeah,
like,
so they
first time, just here you go.
They drove me because they didn't want me to feel the experience of being kidnapped like every other kid has to experience. Getting taken in the middle of the night by transporters and arrested and then shipped off to who knows where. But they dropped me off themselves, which I respect. I think I would have been way more traumatized if it was the other way around. I was on my phone, and I remember taking a tour of the campus, texting my boyfriend at the time, like, oh, I think my parents are going to kill me. We're driving up a dirt road. Like, I'm pretty sure there's going to be a hammer in the back, and they're going to kill me. Like, something's going to happen. And poor guy didn't hear from me for 4 or 5 months until my first visit. So he thought I was dead. But yeah, it was like you go up a mountain to the middle of nowhere, and everybody's just staring at you. You're like driving, and there's apparently grass on the middle of the mountain.
That's still very traumatizing, even though they didn't do the kidnapping route. That's still traumatizing.
I'm already like where
what am I?
Freak? They have grass up this high in altitude is what I was thinking. I was like, this don't make no sense. And all of a sudden I see girls just like looking at me like I'm fresh meat. And I'm like, where am I? And like, and then they take me on a tour to look at these dorms. They're like, look at these, look at these. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, leave me alone. They're like, oh, you can't be on your phone. I'm like, this is when the attitude kicked in. I don't have attitude with strangers or adult figures. I always do better than that. But I was like, I'm going to try this today. And I said, excuse me, you can't tell me not to be on my phone. My mom and dad are over there. And they're like, yeah, we're going to go back there. I was like, oh, okay. And then, Mom, Dad, are you ready to go? We're leaving you here. I'm like, and my dad's crying. And my mom has a smirk on her face. And I'm like, oh my God, they're really leaving me here. So I turn around and Betsy. Hey, Betsy. Betsy's standing there. And I sock Betsy right in the face. Like, boom. And all of them restrain me. And they just restrain me. Put me on the ground. And Betsy's like, you're going to play soccer for us. I hear you're really good at soccer. You're going to play for us. And I'm like, what kind of creep is this? And they're restraining me. At this point, I'm like, my dad's right there. I'm like, let me say bye to my dad. Like, I was like raging. I was like, these girls are going to know me today. Like, they're going to know me. And then finally, I get put on strip searches because apparently I was going to break my glasses and thought I was going to kill myself with my plastic glasses. So I get put on strip searches, which means strip searches every day, every 2 hours.
To sit down and be
every
naked.
2 hours.
Jesus, y'all went through a lot of
the middle of the night.
Wait, let me give reference to people. Can I give quick reference to people? Because some people are going to be like, is this jail or is this a school?
No.
So
really, is it jail? It sounded like it was prison.
So this boarding school, it's called Diamond Ranch Academy. It was, they actually closed down because of malpractice and suicides and, deaths that happen at the school. But essentially it's a boarding school, a therapeutic boarding school, but it's like, boot camp. But you can imagine it almost like some of the practices and exercises and things that they do. It's almost like a jail for like high schoolers in a way. You're stripping all of your freedom from the kids to the point when the first 3 months that they come in, essentially,
for kids.
Yeah, they can't talk. They have to ask for permission to speak. Obviously, there's no type of contact with the outside world. It's ran by Mormons. There's a lot of cons. There's some pros. I'll give them that. I think the idea makes sense, but the way that it was actually implemented, it was just obviously there's a lot of illegal activities that was going on there, a lot of suicides that happened there, and so it eventually got shut down. But that was the school that me and Maria ended up going to. And the thing is, the parents who send the kids there, they don't come from a space of like bad intention, because
they're manipulated.
They're marketing and branding the school as like a safe haven, a place for kids to come. The kids love being there. They learn, they grow. So they have all these different marketing tactics and brandings that they have in place to really make the parents feel like it genuinely is the best place for the kids. And then they find out later, okay, these kids are getting physically harassed, abused, like she got like.
And it may not be physical, but it also is mental.
There's a lot of mental aspect too.
Everybody is at least 18 and above that are running the place. Like the girls that are our staff members that are supposed to watch us every day are my sister's age or my best friend back at home's age. And you're telling me what to do?
Oh my
and you're
God.
literally eating a Snicker bar right in front of me and be like, I know you can't have this. Or saying or making up a lie to know that I'm going to have to like stay there longer and like fail my weeks and just be more miserable. The staff members loved to belittle you, loved to pick on you.
They really do.
And if you were not favored, and thankfully a few people were favored in the school, and thankfully Howell was able to do art, because if Howell would not have known how to do art, she would probably been like treated horribly worse than I was
already treated very bad. Yeah. It was.
And that's saying something good is like, if you weren't good at a sport, or if you weren't good at art, or if you weren't good at singing or doing something that would make them money, then you were treated horribly. And I was treated her. I went there weighing 145, came back weighing 200 pounds. All they did was feed me Cisco food products. And if I didn't eat it all, I'd fail my week, have to start over. It was like a constant battle, and I was not gonna have them brainwash me. So I fought it for the first year. And then afterwards, I was like, looks like I'm gonna have to fake it till I make it at this point and like be goody two shoes over here. But mark my words, when I get out of this place, I'm gonna be 20 times worse than I was when I got in. And I told my parents that on the phone. I was like, I just want to let you know, I'm gonna be way worse when I get back.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And how long were you guys there for? How long were you guys
months.
there?
I was there for a long, long time.
I was there you weren't there for 3 months. You were there for longer.
18.
18. Yeah, I was there for about the same. I was there about the same. I was there for about the same for a long time. Generally, they say kids can be there from 8 to 9, but usually people are there for a year to a year and a half. And really, it's the people who tend to have a mind of their own tend to stay a little bit longer because they don't want to follow, these horrendous like me. I was one of them too. I was there for a long time.
Yeah. And we were from the Bay Area, and that was like a flex on its own. If you're from New York or you're from the Bay Area, all these little white girls that were there that used to make fun of me, I'd be like, hey, I'm from Oakland. I'm not from Oakland, but I'd be like, hey, like, don't mess with me. Like, and it was so weird when you would, especially like Howard and I, when you were raised in the Bay Area and you've seen so many races, you've seen so many weird words being thrown out there. And now you're in Utah, and these girls that are from Louisiana, these girls are from Florida, these little girls that are from Connecticut that are racist. Are now coming to you and being like, oh, this and this, like they're mean. And I've never seen that before. Because in the Bay Area, if you're a racist, you're either going to get beaten up, jumped. People don't allow that over here. They don't allow you to be racist. Like, it just doesn't happen over here. So being over there, it was like, oh my God, people are actually like this. Like, I had never seen it before. And I was so thrown off that I was like, Mom, people are like, I've never heard the term wetback before until I went to boarding school. And I was like, what is that, Mom? My mom was like, oh, like my mom was kind of shocked. And same thing with my husband. My husband is also adopted by a single white woman. He's half white, half black. And he's adopted by a New York Jewish woman. So he's had like the worst of the worst situations, and was also sent to a boarding school, but in a way worse part of Utah, that was way more racist. And he was heard the first time the N-word. Like, he was like, no one's ever called me that until I went to one of these places.
In this safe environments
safe environment, and
they marketed.
Receive it. It's horrible marketing. And if anybody has ever seen the show that's on Netflix now called The Program, I highly suggest to watch it because it gives the perfect, simple explanation to these places, and how they're a marketing scheme to just make money off of rich parents, because it's just horrible. And you think you're going to get your kid back, but I think if I knew 60 people that went there, that includes guys, about 35 of them have died.
Yeah.
And that's either of suicide, drugs, anything, a freak accident. I think Howard and I know 3 people that are females that have died from the campus. And it's just like so many people. I know like no one where I'm from that has died like these situations. Like, but seeing it and just being like, wow, these people didn't get help. It made their situations way worse, or their drug addictions way worse. And just seeing it is sad, because thank goodness I wasn't brainwashed. Thank goodness Howell wasn't brainwashed, because we can see past it. But for the people that are stuck there, it's just horrible. And people that have disabilities that get sent there, that's the worst. So, that hurts me to my core.
Did you guys, when you had the chance to speak to your parents, did you tell them how horrible the condition, what they were doing?
Yeah.
At these
and that's the thing. You can't tell them over the phone when you're there, because they listen to your phone calls. You have therapists
Right,
sitting
because
right
then
in front
if
of
they
your
hear
phone.
you, they're gonna just treat you even
You talk
worse.
bad about the school, that's points away from you, and you have to stay longer.
And
So,
they use the word, they're going to manipulate you. They are going to
absolutely.
manipulate you when they come home, and when you see them on a visit, they're going to beg to come back. That's what the staff say. And it's like,
Oh
Yeah.
my
They're
gosh.
going to
said
say, the
everything.
kids are going to tell you anything. They're going to say, we're going to try to kill them. We're not feeding them. We're not doing this. But do not believe them. These kids are very smart and manipulative. So
Oh, and that's
it's a lot of,
and the staff is manipulative too, which is the worst part. They actually, on my first visit, they told me that I did PCP, because remember how you have to drug test when you get back from your visits?
Mhm.
These people told me and ripped me out of my bed at like 3 in the morning because my drug test came back positive for PCP. But I was with my old mom, my old dad, and my disabled brother who can't even use his hands because he uses his feet for everything. So I'm like, how did I get PCP in my system? And I was in ONA for like the worst part of the program for like 3 days until my therapist saw me and was like, why are you in here? And I said, because I did PCP. And he's like, what? I was like, and he's like, your visit went wonderful. What are you talking about? So the staff were just wanting to belittle me. They didn't even call my therapist, which they were supposed to say she's in the beginning of her program again, when they could have just called him and said, no, her visit went great. Like, actually, like, I
Mhm.
wasn't there for drugs. Never once did I do drugs. My parents even stated that. But for them to make up a lie and make me think I'm a liar again, that was
Yeah.
triggering in itself, to be like, whoa, 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 wait a minute. No, we're not going to do that here. But thankfully it's shut down now. But
Yeah.
it's going to take a while for all of them to be shut down, because there's way worse ones out there. Ours was just number like to a 10, it was a like a 7.
Oh
There's
my
way worse
gosh.
ones.
I'm so glad that this is being talked about so we can prevent this from happening when it comes to adoptions and transracial adoption, like parents thinking these type of schools are going to help their kids, and hearing it
And
from
I
you
hope,
guys are spreading a really good message and saying, don't do that. That is not the best thing for you to help with your adopted child who's not acting according to how you think
right.
they should act.
And
And
then,
it's weird. The
so
one we go to is now adoption only.
yeah,
Go
I was going to say
ahead.
there's a high percentage of these type of programs. A high percentage of the kids who go are adopted or from the foster system. So, which is the unfortunate part, right? Is like, why did it get to that point that the kids have to get sent away? After you already spent a shit ton of money, why did it get to the point where you have to send them away, right? What could have changed or been done before that, so that your kids didn't have to get sent away, go through this trauma of being giving up again? You know what I mean? Because it is really genuinely like Maria was saying, it's like, not only did I get given away again, like it's almost like someone's giving up on you, but also like these people are trying to make me not believing myself. It's like reliving all these like traumas that maybe might seem like small or trivial to listeners, but to like people who are living those experiences that haven't healed from those like traumas and obstacles from childhood, it really feels like reliving those experiences again. You know what I mean? And so I was going to ask you, Maria, so then when you did leave, how did that the fact that you got sent away and were deemed as like the trouble kid, how did that impact your relationship after you come back, or did it have an impact?
It ruined it. Let me tell you. Like, growing up, especially as I said, in a Catholic school, I knew my friends, well, what I thought were my friends, from the kindergarten to high school. Like, I saw these people every single day, not only at school, but my main group of girls that were my friends were all in Girl Scouts with me. We would see each other Friday nights, Saturdays, Sundays. We would see each other after school for soccer because we all played soccer. Like, being in that tight little town, we were hanging out with everybody. But it was a different like dynamic, because coming back, I thought I would have these people. And actually, it's funny that I bring this up now, because I just had my high school 10-year reunion and I got to see a lot of these people again. And this has been since all these things have come out on Netflix. And so now they know I'm not a liar. Now they
Right.
know Maria's stories that she came back like, I got strip search, I got blah, blah, blah. I had to pick up alpaca poop every day. I had to do all this. You're not gonna believe pulling a mule cart around. All these things that were like, this girl's already known to be kind of a liar. That now she's even more of a liar. And it didn't take until this one girl came up to me at the reunion, was like, I'm sorry. I didn't know what you were telling me. Even our other friend didn't know that it was true. And I want to say I'm sorry. And that was the first time I was like, wow, thank you for that, because I needed to hear that from somebody. I needed that validation from somebody that when I came back, I wasn't crazy, because it ruined it. And as I said, I made a promise to my mom, I'm going to come back worse. And that's what I did. I hung out with the same crowds I came back, went back to the same ex-boyfriend that was horrible. I was doing horrible things, sleeping with people that I didn't even know. Like, I was just like, you can't even have sex when you're at boarding school or even do anything. So it's like, I'm gonna be a free woman. Like, even, and my parents had enough of it. I invited the wrong person to the house to use my bathroom, and literally to use the bathroom. And he brought the wrong people in my house, and 2 days later they robbed it. And they stole the wrong safe, thankfully, but they took the safe with all my adoption papers. But it's like, they violated my parents' space. They violated my parents' sanctuary, and that was the last straw. Now my parents, being rich people, they were like, here, we're gonna get you an apartment. It has running water, it has you're safe, it has a roof over your head, but you're gonna have to figure out how to make your own money to make food. You're gonna have to figure out how to do everything. Here you go. Here's your bed that we had in your old room. And I was like, but being 17, having your own spot, your friends are still in high school. They still are about to graduate. I'm like, I'm an adult, baby. I was having the best time of my life in my mind. I probably could have died then. I also stopped all medications my parents have ever put me on, because I was on 8 high dose medications for ADHD, anxiety, depression, bipolar, all at the same time. So I cold turkey stopped those, had some seizures on my floor, seized a bit for days. Thankfully, my next door was a hospital, so I'd frequent there all the time. But I was alone. Girl, I was alone season off of all those pills my parents put me on. And the minute I finally was clear-headed, I called Beth Smart from boarding school, and I was like, Beth, like, I think I'm normal now. And Beth talked to me, and we talked for like an hour. She's like, Maria, you're so clear-headed right now. I've never seen you normal before. I was like, I think it was those medications, because I was put on them at age 6.
Yeah, a lot of
So,
medication.
all the time. And I had brain scans done at high-end companies like the Amen Clinic, which is now world renowned. I had like psychiatrists on speed dial for my mom. Like, they were trying to figure out what was wrong with this girl that just had deep-rooted issues and that had to witness her molester every single day.
Right.
So
It was
it's like,
that
if you
simple.
look
It was
at
right.
just
Like that.
that, it was just one thing that needed to be taken away. And that's one thing I didn't say before. When I was 18, this man was brutally murdered. And
What man?
Well,
the man that molested me, my sister's boyfriend, was brutally murdered in front of her in Berkeley on a drug deal gone wrong. And 2 months before he died, my sister admitted to me that she knew the whole entire time that he molested me. Yeah. So that was closure. Let me tell you, I ran to my father's, because my father and my mom would be like, your story's changing. No. Your story sometimes changes. I'm like, my story has never changed. Finally went to my dad, and my dad turned completely pale. He was like, this has been true, Rebecca? Like, oh my gosh, this has been true? Like, all these things. And I'm like, thank you. I could have had this closure years ago, but at that moment, it was like when you turn 25 and your frontal lobe has fully developed, and you're like, whoa, life could have been so different. But in a way, it's a blessing in disguise. And it didn't take me until as I said, I was a mom to realize this, but I needed to be sent to that boarding school, because my rage and my yelling was scaring my disabled brother to the point he was
Mm-hmm.
having seizures. So
Mm-hmm.
looking at it in a different perspective, if it
Mm-hmm.
was me that had to be sent to that hellhole, I would do it
Mm-hmm.
all over again in order to keep my brother safe and not
Mm-hmm.
have seizures and not freak out every time I walked into the room. I would do it all over again for him. Just like I
Mm-hmm.
would do it all over again just to meet you and Sapphire, Hala. Like, y'all
Aw.
two have been my ride or die since. And I have
Mm.
no friends outside of the people that I talked to before
Mm-hmm.
that are other than you and Saf. I talk to Saf every day. So
Mm-hmm.
it took me to realize, like, I'm thankful for that boarding school. I'm thankful I went through a struggle because my parents
Mm-hmm.
couldn't hit me. They were foster parents. They couldn't spank
Mm-hmm.
me and do certain things or their license would be taken. So I never
Mm-hmm.
had that discipline. Not saying any kid should get hit, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying, like, I needed that tough love.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't able to have it. So I'm blessed that it happened. But it took me a long time to realize that.
Yeah, so it sounds like you took a bad situation that happened to you and
Mm.
just kind of morphed it into something that was more
Yeah.
beneficial to you. That's
Right.
good. Yeah.
Yeah. It takes a
And
lot
that's
to do
why,
that.
and that's why I said, even though there's a lot of cons with these boarding schools,
Mm-hmm.
the idea, the fundamental of what the purpose of these schools are really does come from a good place, because
Yeah.
there are some kids that are uncontrollable. Parents don't know what to do with them. Like, there's
Yeah.
no matter how many books you read, no matter how many resources you have,
Right.
they have to be put in a certain type of environment where it's almost like it's an environment where it's safe and structured enough, but they have to just learn from challenges and from bad shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's ultimately what me and you had to go through.
Yeah.
Now there's ways it can be improved so that there's not
Oh,
suicide
yeah.
Yeah,
practice,
Definitely.
absolutely.
of course. But at the end of the day, I think sometimes once kids leave these schools, they remember some of the exercises and they're like, oh, this is how I, especially the therapeutic exercise, this is how
So
I
structured.
communicate. This is how I communicate, or oh, this is how I'm supposed to behave when adults are around, or oh, I'm not supposed to do this. You know what I mean? They always have it in the back of their heads. It might take a little bit of time for it to catch up to them, but having that structure and that challenge in your life, it can grow you and really develop you. Just kind of tying all of your experiences back to like adoption, and with all of the transracial adoption, the challenges you went through with the boarding school, even the molestation that you went through, which to me is insane. Um, just so disgusting, like the last guest we had on here, same thing, where
Yeah.
the father was actually raping her, and instead of them trying to see the mom didn't know, right? But she was saying the mom was actually a very good person, but she didn't know. And the child was treated as the bad person and given away because she started to react and misbehave and respond to all this trauma that was happening in her own household.
Yeah.
So she was treated like a bad person, just like you were treated like the
Right.
bad person, where people started to not believe you and doubt you. And
Yeah.
now you're the one that's like, in a way, the predator instead of the victim.
Yeah.
So with all your experiences, have you experienced any moments of self-discovery or personal growth through embracing your transracial identity and experience?
Oh, yeah. Especially now that I have a kid, I've embraced it to its fullest because I want to be so open and honest with her that she can come to me and have these conversations and we can just be like easily communication, because you don't have communication, it's never going to go anywhere. And I'm blessed to have a husband that's been in a lot of the same situations I have been. And we can talk to each other about it. So I'm blessed to have that, 'cause not a lot of people have that, where they have someone they can relate to, especially after these being adopted. Number one, I knew like no one growing up that was adopted. Same with boarding school, knew no one that went to a boarding school. So finding the outlet, especially with you guys and talking about adoption, it's going to open so many doors for people to be like, like take a fresh breath air, like I can be normal again, everybody. And yeah, so I definitely will instill a lot of this into my daughter and show her that you can be still a wonderful human being and have been through the trenches, and we can all come out of it. So
Yeah, and that's a fact. That's beautiful because so many people who we are going to speak to, they're gonna have a lot of traumas that happen to them. I mean,
Mhm.
a lot of people do, but like especially adoptive, kids, they were put in the system because from a traumatic like standpoint and in the first place, you know what I mean? So having that grit and that mentality like you have where you still can survive, you can still do really good for yourself. It will take a lot of work, but you got to surround yourself around the right group of people,
Yeah.
people who've gone through similar experiences. Like that's why me and you are able to talk. And like to other people, you might sound crazy, and I'm like, oh yeah, I got you, girl. Like I understand. Like you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
mm,
And I
That is
appreciate
beautiful.
you guys because finding that outlet, I always told Hala, someone needs to do something to talk to the world about
Yeah.
these issues. And not a
Yeah.
lot of people understand adopted people. They're just like, oh, you should be blessed that you have a family that loves and raised you. But it's like, especially in a diverse situation, it may not be the right way. And I've seen it where young girls are treated horribly or young men that are treated horribly because of their race and the parents just don't know how to deal with them. They're like, oh no, what do we do? But having you guys having an outlet is going to help a lot of people be able to open up about it.
what are some common like maybe misconceptions or stereotypes that people you've encountered regarding transracial identity? One of the ones you just brought up, which is like, oh, you should just be blessed just because you're adopted. Has there been any other kind of like stereotypes or crazy thoughts that people say to you, like think or say to you about your adoption experience?
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. Especially being blessed with family that has money per se. It's them being like, hey, well, you're going to be okay because you're adopted by white people. And it's like, but what if a Hispanic family adopted me? What if a Black family adopted me? Because my husband and I want to adopt. It is our plan to not have another child. Naturally, it is our plan to adopt because it's selfish in my way to keep having children when there are thousands to millions and trillions of children that need a home that is going to be accepted, especially by someone that understands that they're going to come with baggage. Because I'm not wanting a little kid, I'm wanting a teenager that is going to be aged out, that is going to need a home and a loving family and stability. And I have financial means to be able to provide for children in the way future. So it's going to be a blessing. And that's what I kind of stab at them back. Well, you're right. I will be able to provide for my kids because of what my parents did and their sacrifices. They weren't rich all the time. They had to sacrifice to get where they were. So I'm going to be able to use that for good. And that's what I tell myself. I don't let all the little words, because people can use all those little words to eat at you. But the biggest one was what I had said earlier is you should just be happy that you had a wonderful family, even all the struggles you went through. But I am happy. I am very happy.
Yeah, like how and I, even though her and I, we talk about our story, at the end of the day, we are happy where we are. And now we've gone through therapy. We've done all the stuff that needs to be done to heal and to appreciate our story, appreciate being adopted and appreciate our parents. And yeah, I can also say I'm happy. I'm happy. It feels good to get to this point because we've been through so much to be like, wow, I'm finally happy. Like, and I feel good about myself. I am at a good place in my life.
Yeah. And that's what a piece of advice I'd give a younger child that's adopted is just know right now, it seems like it's the hardest thing in the world. And if I could tell myself that, I'd be like, Maria, like, wake up. You are going to be okay. Your life is going to be wonderful. Just like, don't let that eat at you. Like, you're going to be okay. Like, and that's what I would tell somebody is like, just believe, because being a child sometimes sucks until you're an adult and you're like, wow, I could have just known that it was going to be like this. Like, yeah.
Ooh, I'm
I know.
sorry.
I'm tearing up. I'm like,
I'm still getting chills about the fact that your parents bought a house for that guy.
Girl,
I'm sorry.
okay,
Like,
but let me tell you,
I
the
know
minute
your
I found out
parents.
he died, woo, I was skiing down the mountain like, woo, daddy.
I'm not gonna lie, I would too.
I would
I
too.
know I met your parents. They're sweet people, and that just goes to show that like sweet people mess up, and these things that we talk about are real as shit problems. You know
apologize.
what I mean? They're real problems, and good people are gonna make those horrible mistakes. But it's having awareness, you know what I mean? Because how do they make that decision? Like, it's like they have to choose between you and the other child who probably has gone through, maybe she's gone through molestation, rapes, or whatever. We don't know what she's gone through, but still, it's just like, what an awful position to be in. But still, I'm pissed as hell for you. So,
but hey, everything happens for a reason, and if none of that would have happened, I wouldn't have been able to relate to the man that is my husband and is the one best father and best husband. So yeah, as I tell him every day, I'm very not blessed that I was molested, not blessed all these things happened to me, but I'm blessed everything happened for the reason. I wouldn't change a thing.
It's a very, very like positive way of outlook, you know, because you could have just decided to go down the wrong path, hate your parents, your sister. I know you still have a relationship with her even to this day.
We're best friends now. Like our kids are the same age. We are best of friends. We all had our talk. We all apologized. We all deeply said they're sorry. You know, and I believe them. And and I can always tell people, they always say like, you should hate your family, all this. And it's like, but I can't. Even if they wouldn't have apologized, I couldn't have hated my family at all. And that's just my heart. That's Laverne's heart for you. So,
and it makes me kind of think, you know, that's very sacrificial of you to say, even though I was not only molested by my sister's boyfriend, and yeah, my parents believed me, but they chose to not be ride or dies for me and just kind of throw that man out of the picture, even try to work a little harder to put him in jail. It was sacrificial for you to forgive, and not to forget, but to be able to move on with them, right? And it brings the point for me that the fact that you, someone who's gone through that experience, can be forgiving and move forward with your family. I want adoptive parents to have that same type of mentality when things happen where their adoptive children, they mess up, have that type of strength, same type of forgiveness and ability to move on with a relationship with the family, and know that things can change. You guys can still build that relationship if you want to put the effort in. I'm sure it was a lot of effort for you guys to be humble enough to apologize to each other for messing each other's lives. Some parents can't even do that with their kids, you know what I mean? And so that's beautiful that
I definitely think there needs to be, I mean, growing up with our foster family, my parents were foster parents mainly. They would have support groups every Monday, and they would get foster families all together to talk. And I definitely believe there should be something like that for adopted families. Some people just adopt, they don't foster before adoption. So I feel like there needs to be a support group that can all talk to each other about these issues, because if not, you're just going to be like, who do I talk to? What do I do? Or I'm going to do what I think is best. And sometimes that's being manipulated by systems that will think they're helping you, but they won't. And the worst part about boarding schools is adoption agencies and the states that you live in will pay for these places for free. So parents aren't having to pay $12,000 a month to send their kid. It's agencies. So there needs to be help in this adoption world, and not let's tear the kids down that are already suffering enough.
Yeah. Well, I hope whoever's watching this, any parents that are watching this, please listen to what we're saying, heed our warnings. Please do not send your kids to these boarding schools, or like do your thorough research on where you're sending your kids. Your kids who are not behaving, because you may be causing more trauma than you think. Like, you might be thinking you're trying to help them, but actually you're causing more trauma. But wow, Maria, you got a story, and I feel like you have a lot more. So hopefully someday
there might be a part 2.
Maybe someday we can all meet, so we can just talk about more about the things we've been through. But it's good. It's good to see you like thriving. You seem like you're in a really good place, and it's such an honor to meet you. Thank you so much for coming on and telling your story. It is so brave of you to do that. For anyone who's watching at home, don't forget to subscribe, share, let people know, and just spread the word about transracial adoption. Thank you. Until next time.
And also, just one last thing: if you are adopted, you have a story, you want to tell it, you want a safe space for people to tell that story. We are inviting new guests to also come and partake in our podcast. Or if you know someone who you think might be interested, let them know. We've got the door open for people who want to share their story too.
Yeah,
so.
And you can also share your story in the comments too.
Yeah, exactly. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.